Earlier this week, we learned how to find C using the triangle theorem. In other words, how do you find the length of the hypotenuse of a right triangle using the triangle theorem? Today, we're going to do something very similar, but instead of trying to find C, we're going to see how would you find B if it was missing. So up at the top, we have a summary of some information I'm going to tell you. You have a reference to your book, a page that can help you, and a reference to the sides of the right triangle. So let's start with your homework today. So your job is to find the missing side length and round your answers to the nearest tenth. The first two have been started for you. Please finish them. So I'm going to do number 1 and number 2 with you, and then you can work on the rest. So the first thing is reviewing what we did last week. If you have a right triangle and you're looking for a side length, you can use the triangle theorem. Now the triangle theorem states a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, we know that A and B are the sides that make up the right angle, and C is the one across. So since I have the two sides that make up the right angle, I was able to plug in 12 and 13 for A and B. Now, because I know the order of operations, I'm going to square both numbers. 12 squared is 144, 13 squared is 169. Now, at this point, I'm just going to add these numbers because I'm just solving an equation. And when I add 144 and 169, I'm going to get 213. And that's going to equal C squared. So where did I get that from again? I got 12 squared plus 13 squared equals C squared. Then I got 144 plus 169 equals C squared. And I added those and I got, I believe that's actually 313. Now, the first thing is a lot of people stop there and say the answer is 313. Well, remember, if this was 12 yards and 13 yards, there's no way this is 313 yards. You still have to do that last step. We don't want to know C squared. We want to know C. So you take the square root of both sides, and you have to find the square root of 313. Now, I know it has to be bigger than 13. Now, because we know C is the longest side, the hypotenuse is the longest side. So you take the square root of 313, and you can simply just take out your calculator and do the square root of 313, and it's about 17.69 or about 17.7. So when I do that, I get 17.7, meaning that the longest side is 17.7, or the length of the hypotenuse is 17.7. So that makes sense. It's a little bit longer than 13. It's the longest side. It's not a lot longer, and that's it. That's a summary of what we did the other week or earlier this week. Now, today, the only difference is what happens if you don't know one of the side lengths. Now, you'll notice that in this case, I'm missing A. I know I'm missing A because it's one of the two sides that make up the right angle. The side across on the right angle, I actually know. See over in number 1, I didn't know that one. That's always C. So in this case, I actually know C, but I'm missing A. Well, how does that change the problem? Well, the triangle theorem doesn't change. It's still A squared plus B squared equals C squared. But now I'm not going to put a number in for A because I don't know what it is. I know B is 4. I know C is 7. So I'm still going to follow the steps. I'm still going to square the numbers that I know. 4 squared is 16, 7 squared is 49. But what do you think the next step is? Over here, remember, I could just add these two numbers. What do you think I'm going to have to do here in order to start to get A squared by itself? Well, if you said I'm going to have to subtract, you're exactly right. I'm going to have to subtract 16 from both sides, just like if I was solving, normal equation. Well, once that's true, then I know I got A squared equals whatever 49 minus 16 is, it's 33. And now again, a lot of people would stop there and say, oh, that's 33. But look at that, right? If that's 4 and that's 7, there's no way that's 33. You still have to do what? You have to take the square root. Now here, I'm not going to use a calculator because I know that um, 5 squared equals 25. I'm going to use my benchmarks here. I know 6 squared equals 36. So what do you think? What squared is 33? Well, it's got to be somewhere between 25 and 36. So somewhere between 5 and 6, a little closer to 6. So I'm going to say A is about maybe 5.8. Now, that makes sense because remember, C always has to be the longest side. So the answer can't be bigger than 7 because I know it has to be less than the longest side. And I already know the longest side is 7, so it has to be less.